Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, depending on where in the world you're dialing in from. It's a pleasure for me to invite you to the session today as part of Apex Oxygen. We are going to learn about how Davids and Goliaths are working as one team. And at the end of the session, we hope to leave you with a flavor of how they are winning as one, how financial institutions, large and small, and also partnerships with technology organizations, large and small, how all of that is contributing to building the healthy ecosystem of fintech. And in order to do that, I have a great panel with me today. We have representatives from 4 organizations who are going to share their experiences with us and share their thoughts and ideas on what they're seeing around them about Davids and Goliaths. So just a quick introduction to start things off. My name is Nilanshuk Haldar, and I'm responsible for financial services partnerships in APAC at Amazon Web Services, AWS. And before we start the proceedings, I would request one by one the attendees, or the panelists rather, to introduce themselves. And we will start with Toby. If you could please introduce yourself.
Absolutely. Nice to meet you all. I'm Toby. I'm in charge of innovation and customer solutions in Asia Pacific at Mastercard. So really excited to talk about Davids and Goliaths today.
Thank you, Toby. We move to Barry.
Hi, everyone. Barry Levette. I'm founder and executive chairman of Smartpezza, Singapore-based fintech.
Then we got Anupam.
Hi, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. First of all, I would like to thank SFF and Apex for this opportunity. It's a real pleasure and honor to be here. My name is Anupam Verma, and I head ICICI Bank's business in Southeast Asia.
And finally, we have Home. You're on mute. I think you need to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, everybody. A greeting from Vietnam. This time is the afternoon in Vietnam now. Thanks so much, Oxygen, for letting me have an opportunity to speak today about the workshop. My name is Hung Dao Gia Hung. I'm coming from VBank, Vietnam Prosperity Bank. I'm in charge of the SME, small and medium enterprises, especially myself in charge of the micro SME, a subsegment of the SME which have the revenue below $1 million US. Today, I would like to, I'm very happy to contribute some ideas about the micro SME business. Thank you.
Thanks. And I'm really looking forward to hearing from all of you. So let's get started. And I'll start with Barry. Now, can you tell us a little bit about what your organization Smartpezza does and what your approach to partnerships is in product development and sales?
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity, and again to SFF and everybody for this opportunity. At Smartpezza, we develop a range of card present and card not present payment and agency banking solutions. The purpose is to enable merchants to accept payments, provide cash withdrawals facilities, do customer opening, and a range of other transactions, really across that last mile. We focus very much on large emerging markets, particularly Southeast Asia, Africa, and LATAM. In terms of go-to-market and working with the Goliaths, we work very closely with banks and acquirers, being a technology solutions provider to them, to try and bring co-development opportunities, new products, new technologies, and productize them into the markets. So such examples would be to take SoftPass or tap-on-phone type solutions, omni-channel payment acceptance, QR, dynamic API integrations, and a number of other things. Really, we're trying to be the plumbing that connects large-scale enterprises into the international networks, banking networks, and of course the networks of partners like Mastercard.
Thanks, Barry. And of course, you talked about card networks like Mastercard. So could you expand a bit on what is the nature of the partnership you have with Mastercard, and what are the benefits that you expect out of this partnership?
Yeah, Mastercard has been a fantastic partner to us, and we've been very honored to be part of their Start Path program as well. They're definitely a fintech and an innovator in their own right. And where we complement them is being able to leverage their scale. The analogy we like to use is, they build the highways and we build the local roads that cover that last mile. That's the difficult button, particularly in emerging markets. Every acquirer system is different. And so we provide the expertise to be able to do that interconnection between the acquirer, third-party APIs, and partners like Mastercard to make sure everything works correctly, is secure, and is compliant. Compliant with the rules of Mastercard, for example. So the partnership is very much a win-win-win type arrangement, whereby Mastercard can innovate the highways, the big pipes, increase their volumes, turn a lot of cash transactions into electronic transactions. In exchange, we get a good pipeline, a lot of introduction. We have the ability to get the backing of Mastercard to allow us to provide certified solutions to acquirers. But ultimately, it's merchants and customers. They end up with more choice at lower cost, and ultimately turning transactions from being cash into electronic is a benefit to everybody, and particularly Mastercard.
Right. So you talked about pipeline, you talked about electronic transactions. We're going to get into each of those a little later, but maybe it's time to just turn around to Toby and get Mastercard's view. Toby, what is Mastercard's expectations from the partnership that you have with Smartpezza? And, going from the specific to the general, once you talk about the Smartpezza partnership and your expectations, could you also share with us what you look for in payment fintechs as a broad category, okay, when you consider a potential partnership with them?
Yeah, absolutely. So when we look at the partnership with Smartpezza, and I think Barry covered it very well, it's really the ability to execute against some of these new opportunities like tap on phone, which really revolutionizes the merchants to be able to now move away from maybe what was expensive hardware in the past to something that is a lot more economical. Now that benefits us on the acceptance side, and I think that's where we really look for innovators like Barry and Smartpezza to kind of say, like, how do we actually deliver some of these promises? And because I think the little side roads, I think that Barry is describing, right? They're the ones who are often a little bit bumpier, right? I mean, when you think about the highway, they're like smooth, they're like well understood, and you can kind of manage them quite well. But it's those bumpy roads actually that give us the most feedback, right? To say, like, is this actually really delivering? Where do we need to make improvements? And for me, I think specifically in my role also, it's really this openness to say, like, actually just sit and listen, right? Like, instead of just saying, like, I'm going to like push through a certain franchise rule or I push through a certain standard without actually listening. Because if we don't listen to partners like Smartpezza around, like, what are the challenges being faced? What are the use cases that are emerging? What are partners saying? Then we don't have the opportunity to actually drive that impact as a broader network and ultimately impact the 1 billion consumers and the 50 million incremental merchants that we want to bring on board using Smartpezza-like technology over the next few years, right? And so Barry may be able to deliver another million, or I don't know like how many millions of new merchants, and we'll have many Barrys around the world. But it's actually creating that opportunity for everyone to kind of collaborate, understand the ecosystem, and our program, which we call Start Path, is really kind of working with the best in class capability players as a representative of this cohort of collaborators. It's about people that have built real businesses, people that understand the ecosystem well, that are not just innovating on PowerPoint, which is like one of my pet peeves, right? Like something that has real code base, something that has been trialed in the marketplace itself. And that's really the kind of companies that bring value, I think, to us as a, so to say, David Goliath, I guess, from a large size organization standpoint. But we also always kind of want to make sure that we bring back value also. And we are actually quite a nimble fintech in our own right. We have less than 20,000 employees globally.
Yeah.
And so the amount of partners and stakeholders we have to manage, we have to be sometimes a bit selective. And again, this is the model where we are leaning on partners to kind of get the voice out, so to say, and it's an amplification mechanism for us.
Right. Thanks for that, Toby. So obviously you have this Start Path program, and you have fintechs such as Barry's Smartpezza, which are part of that, and you also have other partnerships which are with the so-called Goliaths, and the approach that you take to them, I'm sure, are a little different. And one of those happened to be in Vietnam with VBank and AWS. So I would turn to Hong and try and get his perspective on the partnership with Mastercard and AWS. So you're working, Hong, with these organizations on what I would call an ambitious project in Vietnam. So can you first of all share with us a little bit on how your customers, VBank's customers, would stand to benefit from the partnership? So what are the objectives? What are you looking to achieve? And what does it mean for your end customers?
Yes, thank you. VBank and Mastercard has a long relationship, and the relationship has gained many achievements so far in general. And AWS is the newest project that will benefit for the both sides. If you talk about the long relationship with Mastercard, we signed the contract 5 or 6 years ago. With the starting point of the issuing the corporate credit card, and at that time, no banks in Vietnam stepped in the credit card for business. Credit card for personnel, for individual was popular already, but credit card for corporate was very new at that time. I mean, five years ago when we start the contract with Mastercard, and since then we successfully issue more and more corporate credit card, and actually that is the very good solution for SME to control and manage their cash flow using the corporate credit card. And now VBank is one of the best banks issuing the credit card for business so far. This is the general relationship with Mastercard, which brought benefit for VBank very much. Recently, we pushed another initiative with Mastercard called AWS. AWS is the Amazon Web Service. That partner, the AWS partner, was brought to VBank by Mastercard, and we, after some conversations with them, we saw that this is very potential customer base for VBank, and very soon we agreed to go ahead. And then the project starts. For the AWS, for the Amazon Web Service, this is a huge customer base. The business customer, especially the household or micro SME, using the service from Amazon to do their business. And now with the support from the solution from Mastercard and VBank, they will be facilitated about the payment and also about the other very good service from both VBank and Mastercard, and customer like it very much. This is you're right. This is the very ambitious project from VBank, and also I think from Mastercard. From VBank, we consider this is very strategic project because the potential customer from APS is around some thousand customers in Vietnam, and we can offer the solution to those huge database. And firstly, this is a direct sale, and based on that customer base, we can cross-sell many bank service to those customers, and it will bring benefit to VBank because if the customer use the credit card issued from VBank to fund for the Amazon web service, we know the transaction, we understand customer, so we can filter customer and offer them many other things like overdraft, loan, other financial service from the bank. So this is the comprehensive benefits from VBank, from Mastercard, and also the Amazon Web Service customer. So far, the project was done by some months and updated from here. Updated since then, the number of customer was very good. They when they know that solution from VBank, they immediately say yes to the solution and agree that VBank will approach them and offer the credit card. Why do we need to do that? Because the security, the privacy policy that from Vietnam, that Vietnam policy, that customer need to say yes, and then VBank approach the customer. So the first step, when customer was communicated that solution, they like it very much, and immediately they say yes. And the second step is VBank approach them and finish all the procedure, documentation, KYC, everything to issue them a corporate credit card. And after that, the customer can use the credit card to pay for the Amazon Web Service. So of course, there are many other things we need to push now, strengthen the communication, working more smoothly with Amazon Web Service about the process, everything. But so far, I think after some months, the project ran quite smoothly and quite good.
And we're obviously very grateful for all the fantastic work from VBank. And I think what it really speaks to me actually on your story is how the pieces come together and how we need to focus on the inclusion of the SMEs, inclusion of the consumers, right? So I think payment is so to say, the grease of the wheel, but it's ultimately getting them online, giving them the ability to function as businesses in this new normal, right? And I think this is where all the pieces come together. So fantastic story. Thanks for sharing.
Exactly. Yes.
That's how all the pieces come together. Absolutely, they do. Hong, I have two follow-up questions for you. Now, this project, of course, this has been running for a couple of months. Going forward, how will you measure the success of this partnership? That's my first question. What are the things you would look at in order to say whether this has been successful or unsuccessful or something in between? And my second question is, at the end of the day, this is an experiment. It's an ambitious experiment, but it's still an experiment. And one of the things that we talk about at Amazon is doing two-way door experiments, which means that those are reversible. But more importantly, I think you should be able to make changes or go through some sort of course correction if you need to. So my second question is, how quickly can you make changes or adjustments if you need to in the course of this project? So first is, how would you measure the success of this project in future? And the second is, if you need to make some changes, I don't know if you already have had to, but if you need to, how quickly can you do it and how would you do it?
Yes. The first question is what is the success criteria about that project? Actually, I think that, of course, from the technical perspective, I set a very clear KPI for our team when they initiated that project. The most important successful KPI indicator is the number of customers acquired from ABS customer base, because we consider that the customer base is very large, some thousands in scale, things like that. So we set clear KPI for the team that it should be around some hundred and thousand customer using the credit card from VBank. This is one of the most important KPI of that project. The more credit card issue, the better that customer know about that project, know about VBank service. So this is good. The second success criteria is the number of customer use that credit card to frequently make payment to ABS, and then make payment for another demand of the customer, because this is a general credit card. So customer will use that not only for ABS service, not only to pay for ABS service, but also to pay for their normal business demand. So monthly, we will have a dashboard to measure, okay, the number of issue card is X, but the number of customer actually use that is Y, and the number of transaction, the volume transaction that customer use the card. This is the third indicator. So this is the criteria that we use to manage the success of the project. And the fourth indicator is the cross sales of them. Of course, this is a little bit early to talk about cross sales now, but soon, when the number of customers more and more, we will introduce our cross sell financial service to the customer, and then at that time we will set another KPI for the team. For example, number of loan, number of overdraft that the customer use, and other things like that. This is the first question, I think. And your second question is how quickly we make the change when we want to that the project better. Of course, VBank has a product development process, and the condition of the credit card for ABS is one of the product. So of course it takes a little bit time to collect the data, make the business case, analyze the business case, and submit to the product council to get approval from that. So it takes a bit time, around 1 week, 2 weeks, to make a change to the one condition to the ABS program. Because ABS program was available already. So if we make something change now, it's only change one condition, 2 conditions, 3 conditions. So it is only 1 week or some days or 1 week. The most painful change. No, the most painful point we made already is the design the whole program for the ABS. It takes around nearly 1 month to convince the product committee about the benefit and the profit business case of the ABS, and it is done already. It is done already, and now that's we change something, and it is quicker and quicker.
That's great to know. So it took you almost a month to make sure you got all your approvals from the product committee, but then if you have to make any change going forward, it could be not longer than a week.
Yes.
So that's good to know.
Yes.
Okay, excellent. Let's move to Anupam. So Anupam, you are obviously representing ICICI's business in Southeast Asia, but what we would like to hear from you is how are large banks in India, and of course in particular ICICI, given that's one of the largest, how are they using partnerships across multiple areas in financial services? If you could share that with us.
Sure. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, all good.
Yeah. So Nashuk, India has a very vibrant ecosystem where the banks and fintechs are coming together to reimagine customer experience. India has more than now 2,000 fintechs, and there are multiple successful partnership use cases in the area of payments, SME lending, invoice discounting, robotic process automation, as well as credit underwriting and fraud management. The creation of India Stack payment infrastructure, the digital infrastructure in form of UPI, has been a game changer. So this is what propelled, I would say, the first set of partnerships as bank worked with fintechs for fulfilling digital payment solutions to both individual customers as well as merchants alike, both in terms of online as well as offline mode. In this space, banks have working with fintechs like Paytm, BharatPay, BillDesk, etc. Now, let me share some high-impact initiatives of ICICI Bank. ICICI Bank has always been at the forefront of innovation and technology. One of the collaboration is the launch of video KYC, which was allowed by RBI, the central bank, recently. We did this in partnership with a fintech. This has dramatically changed the customer onboarding process. Video KYC has made the onboarding journey for the customer for account opening and other asset products completely frictionless and paperless, completely digital. This means an account can be opened instantaneously at the place and time convenient to the customer. This also lays the ground for a very, very different scale and unit economics for the bank. ICICI Bank also recently launched Mine. It's a banking app for millennial customers who we see as digital natives and who see banking in terms of banking being simple, mobile first, and highly personalized. Banking for millennials is an experience, not just a transaction. So ICICI Bank tied up with Squirrel, a fintech, for providing investment guidance to the millennials. This provides simple and convenient goal-based savings and investment platform. In another use case, we are working with Open, a neobank, for carrying out invoicing, vendor payments, as well as accounting for SMEs. Reconciliation is a very, very big point for SMEs, and this partnership tries to solve that problem. In another case, in agribusiness, we are working with the fintech for satellite data analytics, which can be used for credit underwriting. So these are some of the use cases, but we have many partnerships going.
Thank you. So obviously a lot of success stories, and in all of the cases you mentioned, you have partnered with smaller, younger organizations. What would be interesting to also understand, and I'm sure that will be a question in the minds of the viewers, is what are some of the challenges you have faced, and what could be the challenges that large financial institutions could face when they are partnering with these fintechs? Because those challenges are as much part of those partnerships as the successes are. So could you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. The partnership between banks and fintechs can provide customers best of both the worlds. Banks have their strengths in terms of customer base, brand, and funding base. Fintechs bring new ideas, cutting edge analytics, agile implementation, and a unique user experience. Banks provide fintechs scale to put into production their proof of concept. Banks also use these platforms to experiment with new business models, which were maybe earlier unviable. Working with fintechs has a big rub-on effects on the culture of large organizations and teams. Fintechs also help bank by providing early access to new technology and faster time to market. But having said all that, for the partnership to work, bank has to believe that it's a partnership of equals. There has to be a senior level commitment and real understanding of what both parties bring to the table. Banks need to have customer first, banking later mindset. You don't need to build everything yourself mindset. It's a win-win and not a zero-sum game mindset. These are very, very important lessons. Leadership should understand that the skills and technology tools which are required to serve the customer of tomorrow, be it experience design, data analytics, AI, ML, or cloud, all that will come. You can't build from scratch on your own. Traditionally, the banks have to balance innovation with risk management. As a result, banks have to have a really committed and digitally native leadership to make collaboration a success. At the end of the day, bank has to believe that it wants to be a technology company to survive and thrive in the new competitive world. In the world of tomorrow, it's only the customer experience which will matter. Banking will be invisible and will be embedded in the experience. So if I have to just say it in one sentence, I think for banks, legacy technology may not be a constraint, but a legacy mindset can be.
That's indeed very eloquently put. So legacy mindset is a problem. And you also talked about, Anupam, you talked about things like partnership of equals, distributing the work and not trying to do everything by yourself. What struck me was the cultural element underpins all of these. And obviously, that's super important. Which also leads me to think that culture is as much about who you are, but it's also about where you are. And, that's the next question that I have for Hong. So when we think about culture, of course, you have seen and you have partnered with multinational companies that are doing business in Vietnam or wanting to do business in Vietnam. And when you look at these partnerships, can you share with us what are the things that someone looking to do business in Vietnam need to keep in mind, especially when partnering with companies in the country? Are there any do's and don'ts, whether you look at it from the perspective of financial services or banking or from the perspective of technology?
Yes. Actually, Vietnam is the Vietnamese government more and more open recently for the companies outside. We call the FDI, foreign direct investment, and the portfolio of foreign direct investment in Vietnam become more and more. You can see recently that, especially when the trade war from China and US becoming more and more very big companies from the world thinking about transfer the manufacturing into Vietnam. So a lot of benefits and a lot of things can facilitate the multinational company when they have the plan doing business in Vietnam. Of course, when they thinking about doing business in Vietnam, they need to consider some points. Firstly, I think this is the law of Vietnam. The laws in Vietnam. In Vietnam, we have the enterprise law, we have the direct foreign investment law, and also another below the law we call the decree, or some Vietnamese some government announcement, something like that. So the multinational company need to analyze those documents very, very carefully when they step in in Vietnam. The second thing is that in Vietnam, even recently the digital transformation more and more happen, more and more better. But Vietnam is still is the cash dominated economy. So they need to prepare something when they doing business. For example, the transfer money, or I think something like still with doing manually, not something like convenience like the developed country. This is the second thing. And some other points. I think small point. They need to care about something. For example, the location, the culture, when where they put the factory and the main of the office there. Hanoi is different from Ho Chi Minh City, and also different from some other province, for example, where they need to care about the culture there. This is the things that they need to consider when they doing open business in Vietnam. Otherwise, and Vietnam is very open. The labor is cheap. The transportation is better and better, and also the law, the policy is open for business outside from the world. So I think there are no need other things we need to consider.
Great. So Vietnam is open for business. That's a great message.
Yes.
But I quite like your second point where you talked about a lot of cash still being used, and I'm linking that with what we heard earlier from Toby around the importance of listening, because a lot of these territories are uncharted, and not only uncharted, but these are bumpy, and Barry has been on some of those bumpy rides. Barry, I mean, from your perspective, you serve customers in several emerging markets. So can you double click on a couple of examples maybe from your experience where successful partnerships have worked for you? And if you can again extrapolate from those examples and tell us a little bit about what large enterprises and startups can learn from those.
Yeah, sure. I think some of the interesting innovation this year, in many ways driven by the COVID, has happened in agency banking actually, which has been part of our mission to drive financial inclusion. So I'm talking about Philippines. Due to the lockdowns, it's been quite difficult for people to get access to cash effectively to their own bank accounts. So we've seen the explosion in volume as a result of the COVID lockdowns. And so we worked very closely with our partners there, RCBC, Land Bank, and latterly Natco, to increase the number of agents and networks across the Philippines, which is about driving real need, at the grassroots level. And in fact, we had a number of messages, very personal messages back as to how this has changed people's life, which again reflects back into what we do is not just high level, but actually impacts people's lives. But not only that, for kind of Land Bank, we also added the ability to do instant issuing of Mastercard prepaid cards, doing eKYC, live eKYC at the agency banking type level. So that provides a kind of a micro account for the unbanked. And I think getting back to your question, what's the lesson? I think the lesson for the enterprises is if you've got the infrastructure in place, if you've got those roads, the highways from Mastercard and the local roads from a fintech, you can then look to respond quickly to these problems that arise, like these COVID lockdowns, and to actually look to develop new solutions, try and see the problem, hear the problem from the front line, and come up with ways of doing things. It means changing the innovation cycle from kind of years to days or weeks. Hong talked about his ability to change a product within a week, which in the traditional banking environment is almost unheard of. So I think the lesson, a couple of lessons is if you've got the pipe, if you've got the infrastructure, it's certified, it's secure, then you can increase your cycle, innovation cycle accordingly. And I think the single biggest message and sort of, the major message I've got for enterprises is if you're still talking and thinking the vendor model, it doesn't work anymore. You're losing a lot of opportunity to work with fintechs in co-developing innovative project, solutions and products. So, work with them. They have knowledge. They've got experience. Bring them into the team. That's my biggest learning and message to enterprises.
Co-op them in your team. Yeah, that's a strong message indeed. I had a couple of other points I wanted to ask of the panel, but I wanted to also take a question from the audience here. Maybe start with Barry. Barry, the question is it necessary for on-the-ground presence for these strategies to be truly effective in the developing markets? What have you seen, sitting where you are, as well as, looking at what some of the partners that you have, what they have done or not done?
Generally not. We provide the intelligence and the back-end systems, etc. But we've provided solutions into markets where we've never traveled to. So it is possible to develop and leverage existing partners that are on the ground, as long as the intelligence stays central. So you've got a good platform that you're leveraging, and you've got the ability to write the apps and put them on the mobile phone. The actual distribution of the rest of it can be done actually quite by merchants themselves. It doesn't need to get done by the acquirers or the banks. It can be done by existing terminal service providers or logistics partners or pretty much anybody else. So it is possible to provide solutions 100% remotely.
I'd also like to get Hong, your views. Not being on the ground, does that work in Vietnam, or does it not work, or is the answer somewhere in between?
You mean the go ground?
Yeah, presence on the ground. Do you need to have a presence in the country to succeed? If you are a multinational organization, or if you are a fintech which is not, born in Vietnam, do you need to have a presence in the country in order to be successful?
Actually, I'm not catching the actual the full meaning of the go ground. You mean that it is something like the construction or?
No, I was asking, I think that what the question is asking is, in order for a company, whether it's a large or a small company, to have an effective partnership and succeed with customers in a place like Vietnam, just to take an example,
yes,
is it important to have a presence in the country, like have an office, have people, employees in the country, or is it still okay to get the job done through partners, for example, or associates, for example?
I think both. Okay, I fully understand. Both ways are still working in Vietnam. It depends on your business purpose. If you want to explore the specifics benefit from Vietnam, like the cheap labor or the location, or enjoy the transportation, you can put the ground in Vietnam. But if you still need something like indirect investment, you can invest through a partner in Vietnam. No need to go here. Put some ground here. As long as I know both ways are still okay. In Vietnam.
Great. We're just coming to the top of 45 minutes. I think what I would do is maybe, Toby, give you a minute to capture what you think is the takeaway from the session, and distill everything into 1 minute. What's the takeaway for you?
Well, I think the takeaway is that it ultimately comes down to the use case that we're all trying to solve for. Is it cash displacement? Is it like digitization, agent banking? And I think that's ultimately a key challenge for us, I think, as an ecosystem to come together. I think if we can identify problem statements, I think as we saw with VPBank with SMEs, as we saw with Barry with acceptance, right, as we saw with Anupam across digitization of banking experience and eKYC, if we can already around these problem statements, I think the partnership model is a fantastic opportunity. And of course, AWS can provide all the infrastructure to make it make us work together through APIs and through different ways of collaborating. But ultimately, that is, I think, my key takeaway: partnerships that are grounded in purpose, grounded around a specific objective, I think really have a long runway to build fantastic outcomes for the ecosystem. And I think we need to keep focusing on that versus, again, what I call sometimes PowerPoint innovation or strategies. Let's build things together and be also mindful about what you can contribute, right? And I don't waste each other's time with lengthy conversations, be action-oriented and ultimately get things done to serve the end customer.
Very well said. So solve problems, build things together, be flexible, and don't focus so much on whether you're a David or a Goliath, because whether you're a David or a Goliath depends on the context, depends on what you're doing, and depends on where you want to go to, not necessarily where you are and what you are today. So on that note, thanks everybody for joining. This has been a great panel discussion. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And thanks to everyone who listened in. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.